Okay, I think it's about time for me just to get started with a little welcome speech. I'm Paul Rosenfeld. I'm the 47th Ward Democratic Committeeman. Welcome all of you who are with us today. Candidates, thank you so much for being with us and presenting to our community. We think that we take this very seriously here, and we really appreciate that you guys do too. I'm going to turn it over to Dan Palmer, who's going to kind of be hosting us, talk about the rules of how we're going to do this. But I want to first start off by saying that we expect the entire thing to be about 45 to 50 minutes. We have it on a tight schedule. We look forward to hearing from these guys. And while we always appreciate feedback from our community members, right here and right now is for us to meet the candidates. So we really appreciate that any comments that you have, there's no blurting out, that you leave your mics muted. This is not an engagement between you and them. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Palmer, but I'm just going to say how much we appreciate all this. We look forward to hearing this, and let's bring it on. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, Paul, for that introduction. And thank you all once again for attending this important forum that will help define the race to decide the next state rep for the 13th district. On behalf of the 47th Ward Democrats, I want to welcome you and hope you gain some real insight into the policies and positions of each candidate. Like Paul said, the most important request we have for all in attendance is to please be respectful and courteous, allow the candidates to express themselves, and allow the constituents to listen. The intention of this forum is to be civil and informative. We are not here to grandstand individually, but to work collectively to ensure we make the best decision for the 13th moving forward. Please be advised this forum is being recorded. Video and audio may be used for social media and/or other purposes. Now, allow me to briefly explain the rules and format of tonight's forum. We'll start off with opening statements. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes and 30 seconds to speak. After that, 5 questions will be posed. These questions were previously submitted and will be asked by some of our highly respected and appreciated precinct captains who volunteer in the district. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. Finally, each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. I will respectfully call out a 15-second warning prior to time expiring. Don't wish to be rude or cut your point short, but we must be mindful of the time. Know that the speaking order was selected randomly, and we will rotate positions, so everyone will have a chance to lead at some point. Once again, for those not speaking, there will not be any chat availability or an open floor of any type. Any inappropriate behavior or disruptive speaking will result in being removed from the forum. So with that being said, if everybody is ready to rock and roll, we can begin with our opening statements. First candidate we will be hearing from tonight will be James O'Brien.
Great. Thank you, Dan. So I'm James O'Brien, and first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to Paul, Dan, the rest of the 47th Ward for having us. These conversations are really important, so thank you. I am the only candidate who was born and raised in Chicago, and I'm running because I want to help the city that we all love. I'm heavily influenced by my Irish immigrant grandparents who had core values of education, hard work, and being kind. And I want to take those to heart and use it to help create the American dream for more families. Now, everyone up here is going to tell you some version of how they're a fighter, right? That's the new buzzword in politics. But I've been a fighter since before it was fashionable. I have spent my entire career in public service working to actually deliver results instead of just talk about it. Because I feel like we have too many people that have bluster. And when they get into office, they don't know how to build the coalitions necessary to actually get things done. And that's why I have more endorsements from members of the General Assembly than every single candidate here combined. And I have the endorsements of the politicians that we want to work with because they know me and they know what I bring to the table, my work ethic, and that I'll be an effective partner there. They have seen me be the lead staffer for historic statewide school funding reform, something that's going to be incredibly helpful with our CPS crisis right now. They have seen me work on balanced budgets, which is going to be so useful for our transit crisis. And they've seen me work to be the best advocate I could by earning a law degree, as well as a master's in energy policy and climate from Johns Hopkins. And all those fancy accolades and lines on a resume, they're nice, but they don't mean anything in this race unless you're determined to use that to help people. And I've done that my whole career. And throughout that career, I've had moments that really bring it home for why you do the work, right? I've had parents come and embrace me after school funding passed because they knew the difference it was going to make for their kids. I have seen couples cry tears of joy after watching marriage equality pass. And those are the types of moments that I want to use my experience to bring more of. So I want to work for you to help make housing more affordable, to have a school system that we are proud of, to have transit that is world class, to have climate that is livable, and healthcare that is accessible and affordable for everyone.
50.
Because the stakes are so high right now, and you deserve new energy combined with experience that can help make that a reality. So thank you so much, and I look forward to earning your support as I run for state representative.
Thank you very much, James.
Thanks.
Pretty much right on time there. I didn't mean to jump in on you, but. All right. Thank you again, James. Our next candidate we will be hearing an opening statement from will be Ridge Knapp.
Hey, y'all. Thanks again to Paul, to Dan, to Vincent for everyone getting this great event together. It's so good to see so many names and faces of folks I've already had the chance to chat with, and thanks to the rest of you for taking some time out of your evening to be with us here tonight. As Dan said, my name is Ridge Knapp. I'm a data analyst, I'm a youth and competitive sports coach, and I'm a candidate for state rep here in the 13th district. I have spent my life organizing to elect Democrats and progressives, and my career using data to make people's lives better here in Chicago and beyond. And like a lot of folks in my generation, my journey to politics started in high school. When junior year, some friends of mine founded our school's first Gay Straight Alliance. So we reached out to my hometown's Republican state senator one of those days to ask how he'd vote on a bill coming up to ban so-called conversion therapy. And he said he hadn't thought about it yet, which to tell a bunch of queer kids that was the wrong thing to do. So we all picked up clipboards and we haven't stopped since. I moved to Chicago for college about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, to study public policy and religion at the University of Chicago. And that's where, in my freshman dorm, I watched Hillary Clinton's concession speech. And one thing she said has stuck with me ever since. Never stop believing that fighting for what's right is worth it. And it's that spirit that drove me to organize my campus and campuses across Chicago and across the country with the College Democrats of America, fighting back against the first Trump administration. It's that spirit that brought me to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, where as an analyst, we used facts and data to fight back against conservative fear-mongering to make our criminal justice system more efficient, more accountable, and more just. It's that spirit, again, that moved me to join the Harris-Walz campaign last year, early enough that it was the Biden-Harris campaign when I started, with their national analytics team, to fight tooth and nail, day and night, to try and stop the regime that now threatens to send troops into Chicago. And it's that spirit that brought me here today in this as a candidate for state representative, to fight to make Illinois a better place, a more affordable place, a more accessible place, and most importantly, to fight for the people who need a fighter most. People like my dad, who, before he passed, struggles with his physical health, with his mental health, led to him losing his job, the job he needed even as a senior, which then led to him losing his apartment, which then led to him slipping into the growing ranks of people experiencing homelessness across the country. And no one deserves to go through what he did. And Springfield, thank you, Dan, I will make it my mission that no one has to. And I look forward to chatting a bit more about my campaign with you tonight. If I don't touch on a topic you'd like to hear more about, please feel free to reach out. And thanks again for having us.
Thank you very much, Ridge. Next up for an opening statement will be Adam Braun.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening. My name is Adam Braun. I'm a Chicago public school parent, and I've lived in Uptown for 15 years. I'm running for state representative because we need experienced fighters who can protect our rights and stand up for our communities. Illinois needs leaders who not only have the right values, but who have a track record of ensuring our rights are protected, that healthcare is affordable and accessible, that our streets are safe, that public transportation suits our needs, and that we have good public schools. I'm the only candidate in this race who not just has the experience of working in government, but of accomplishment at the highest levels. If you want to know what I'll do as your state representative, just look at what I've already done. For 5 years, I served as Executive Deputy Attorney General under Attorney General Raul. During my service, I worked with him to stand up to the Trump administration's attacks on our civil rights, protect abortion rights, and keep our environment clean. We fought back against price gougers who took advantage of vulnerable people and made the perpetrators of the national opioid epidemic pay to remediate the damage they caused. We passed legislation in Springfield that protects teenagers from predatory vaping companies and passed legislation that holds the firearms industry accountable for their misleading advertising. We built the most extensive crime gun tracing platform in the nation so that law enforcement agencies all across Illinois can take trafficked firearms off our streets. I work side by side with Attorney General Raul every day, and I'm proud that he's endorsed my campaign. But the most important title I've ever held is not Executive Deputy Attorney General. It's Dad. As a parent, I've experienced how communities coming together can overcome big challenges. When my child was born with a rare genetic disorder, the insurance company denied us coverage for a medical device that would allow him to hear. I'll never forget the sleepless nights wondering how we could possibly pay our medical bills. But we didn't let the insurance companies get away with it. We organized families all across Illinois, took the fight to the insurance industry, and passed legislation that requires them to cover these devices for children. This is the record I'll bring to the Illinois House of Representatives. I look forward to tonight's discussion and hope to earn your support, just as I've earned support from Attorney General Raul, former Alderman Amaya Pawar, and House Majority Leader Robin Gable. Thanks so much, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Adam. Next up, giving an opening statement will be Demi Palecek.
Thanks so much, Dan, and good afternoon, everyone, or good night, I guess we can say now. Thanks to the 47th Ward for hosting this and everyone for coming. We have a really amazing crowd. If we haven't gotten the chance to meet yet, my name is Demi Palecek, and I'm running to be your state representative in the 13th District solely because I believe that government should work for us. I got my first job when I was 14. I was a dishwasher in a local restaurant downstate, trying to help my family make ends meet. I'm a proud daughter of a Vietnam veteran who left the war struggling with PTSD and to numb that pain would drink alcohol instead. My mom is a Mexican immigrant who battled with mental health issues. She was schizophrenic and bipolar. And as a high school freshman standing over that sink after classes ended, I couldn't help but feel that the government had forgotten about families like mine. And I always wondered, was life always going to be this hard? When I was 19, I enlisted into the Air Force active duty. And don't get me wrong, I was proud to serve my country. But honestly, at the end of the day, it was the only way that I could afford college. And my service took a dark turn when I was sexually assaulted on duty. And instead of the military working for me and protecting me against my assaulter, I actually lost my rank, my beret, and I got kicked out. I was luckily able to go home and be okay and rejoin as the Army National Guard. I vowed to fight and defend people who, like me, who were hurt, victimized, and betrayed by those in power. And I would never let that happen under my watch. And that's what exactly I've been doing in the Army National Guard. I fight for sexual harassment investigations. I'm the equal opportunity officer, and I fight for all the protections against racism, misogyny, and everything going on in the government right now. I fight for my trans soldiers, and I was even deployed to January 6th in the aftermath of Donald Trump's insurrection. I still serve as the equal opportunity officer in my unit, and I ensure that no one, regardless of their background, will ever be left behind. And as someone who's defended democracy on the most fragile day that we've seen, I'm proud to still wear the uniform. I'm proud of my uniform and service, but I'm more proud of the things I've done in Chicago. I finished my education at Columbia College, and I've worked in communications and marketing. I support candidates and local elected officials who share my same beliefs in supporting working families. I started organizing in my community. I serve as the president of the 46th Ward Democrats, the chair of Illinois Veterans for Change. And I coordinate tons of food drives all throughout the district, making sure everyone has warm coats, shoes, and anything that they may be lacking. Donald Trump's not going away, as we can see, and he poses a very real threat amongst all of us. Right now, our Hispanic community is scared and in hiding. As a Hispanic, I'm one of the only people in my family who has papers and is documented. Families are afraid to
Yes,
lose,
thank you for the
go to
time,
school.
sorry.
Thank you. It's okay, Dan.
All right, thank you very much, Demi. Appreciate it. Last but not least, of course, on our opening statements will be Sunjay Kumar.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, 47th Ward. Thank you all for taking the time to come to this town hall. With democracy under threat, your involvement here is more important than ever at the local and state level. So thank you all for being here. My name is Sunjay Kumar. I use he or they pronouns. I'm a proud queer Indian American, a transit rider, biker, and community organizer. I am running for Illinois' 13th State House District, as are the other people we've just heard from. My partner and I moved in the district in 2017. We wanted to live somewhere where we could walk down the street holding hands without worrying. This isn't something we could take for granted as a visibly non-white queer couple, but this district welcomed us. Here, I found an inclusive neighborhood and a community who shared my vision for a more just world. My partner and I decided to put down roots in this community, and we bought a home in 2019. Now this community that we've made our home is under threat. The MAGA extremist federal government is an existential threat to our values and our way of life. They are sending federal agents into our neighborhoods to terrorize our immigrant neighbors. They're blackmailing our healthcare providers to try and prevent queer and trans people like me and my community from accessing life-saving healthcare. They are criminalizing women and trans people who are coming to our state to get access to abortion and other forms of reproductive healthcare. And they're cutting federal programs that millions of Illinoisans rely on for transportation, shelter, education, and healthcare. We are faced with a choice. How are we going to respond as a state? Will we stand in solidarity with our neighbors who are being targeted? Will we hold institutions accountable when they comply in advance to extremist demands from a fascist president? Will we tax corporations and billionaires to prevent cuts to vital services like public education, transit, and healthcare? I am running for the 13th district to make sure that Illinois says yes. As a community organizer, I have built multiracial cross-class coalitions to pass transformative legislation around public safety and immigrant rights. I have organized campaigns to get progressive champions elected up and down the ballot. I know what it takes to bring community members and grassroots organizations like this one into the process of governing so that we can resist the politics of fear and division, and together build a state that is more affordable, accessible, and safe for all of us.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. Okay, that concludes our opening statements. We're going to move into our question portion of tonight. And I just want to remind you that these questions were pre-prepared. They're going to be asked by some of our finest precinct captains. Each candidate will get 1 minute to answer. We're basically going to take the original order and kind of rotate it to where now Ridge, who went second on the opening statements, will go first, and so on and so forth. So for the first question, we have our very own Mike Pennisnack.
Yes, our best precinct captains and Michael. So my question to the field is, if you were sworn into office today, what would be the first bill you would introduce into the legislature?
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike.
No,
Should I
go
just
ahead.
take-
Go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, thanks, Mike. That is the whole point of why we're all running for this. There are bills we want to push for, bills we want to reintroduce or introduce, and there's a lot of great work already being done in Springfield. There is a lot of legislation I'd love to, add my name to as a sponsor. As I let off, I think the first thing I'd want to push for is, increasing that funding, whether that's, budgetary or through other means, to address homelessness services. In the last budget that was passed, I know a lot of moving footballs were, out there in the air, but funding for those services shouldn't be a political football. It shouldn't be something we can fund when we have the money and something we don't fund when we don't. These people are our friends, our neighbors, and most importantly, they're human beings who deserve dignity and need these services to get by. The Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness says that 32,000 people in Chicago are experiencing homelessness. That's almost double what it was before COVID. And these people need our help as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you, Ridge. Next up to answer the question will be Adam Braun.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Michael. I would actually introduce a package of legislation on my first day in Springfield. So my priority will be to build on the work that I did in the Raoul administration to fight back against Donald Trump. And I would propose an affirmative agenda that protects civil rights, protects abortion, ensures access to affordable health care, and keeps our streets safe. I'll work to stabilize the state budget so that Illinois has strong fiscal footing and can provide services to everyone in the state, regardless of their income level or zip code. And I'll work for full funding for Chicago public schools. But I also want to point out that more than any substantive issue, more than any particular piece of legislation that I would introduce, I would work to be responsive to my constituents. So I alluded in my opening to an experience that my family had dealing with health insurance. While we were navigating that system, I relied on our state legislators to provide assistance and support. And that's what I would want to do as your state representative. I want the people of the 13th district to know that when they pick up the phone, I'll be on the other end, ready to help them and support them with anything they need from state government.
Thank you very much, Adam, for that answer. Next up will be Demi Palecek.
Thanks, Dan. If I was sworn into office today, the first bill that I would put into legislator is actually something I'm working on now. It's House Bill 3320. It's part of the Rifle Act. I work for gun legislation and anti-prevention. So basically, you know how plastic surgeons are held liable for if they do malpractice, bartenders are held liable if someone gets a DUI that they've overserved, right? So if police officers are finding about 60% of the weapons used in gun violence, why are taxpayers paying $200 or $2,200 a year in their taxes that goes straight to gun violence? And that could be ambulances, first responders, Medicaid, and Medicare. So if we're finding 60% of the weapons used in gun violence, why would we not put that bill back on the gun manufacturers? And then with that money, I want to put it in transit. I'd want to put it back into Medicare and Medicaid, and it would even have enough for CPS. So that would be the first thing I would do if I was sworn in.
Thank you very much. And moving along with the answers, next up will be Sunjay Kumar.
Yeah, thank you for this question. So if I was sworn in tomorrow, number one priority would be getting the transit bill passed. We are in danger of having 40% service cuts to public transit across Chicagoland and across the state. That is not acceptable. Public transit is the engine of our economy. It is also what allows us to be connected to the rest of the city. So that would be my number one priority, making sure that we are fully funding public transit, building a way forward to a public transit system that is reliable, accessible, and safe.
Thank you for that answer. And the final answer to our first question is coming from James O'Brien.
Thanks, Dan. So to answer the question directly, the first legislation I would work on is a bill to fund Chicago public schools and schools throughout the state. You know, what's happening right now with CPS is not okay. With the budget crisis, folks are worried about whether or not students are going to get hot meals, whether they're going to have after school programs, the services they need to have a fulfilling future. And parents, kids, teachers, like they shouldn't be caught in the middle of that political battle. So I want to go to Springfield and fight for more school funding, but also make sure that it gets spent correctly and that it reaches the classrooms. And I know I can do that because I was lead staffer on school funding reform, as I mentioned, but I'm also endorsed by the K through 12 education budget chair, as well as the lead sponsor of the elected school board bill. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I'm very well equipped to do that. And when you do school funding right, you can use it as a tool to bring down property taxes to make rent and housing more affordable, as well as make sure that people stay in the city of Chicago and don't flee elsewhere outside of Chicago.
Thank you, James. All right, that wraps up the answers to our first question. Moving along to our second question, coming from Mr. Matt Kuzma.
Thank you, Dan. 1 second, let me pull this up. And thank you to all the candidates. So it is 2025, and we use transit very differently than we did in 1985. And although you look at some of the infrastructure, and a lot of it is much older than that, what is the state's role in funding and managing transit from your point of view? And what would you want to improve? And one, if you want to talk about this, there was a recent bill as part of kind of the proposed funding that looked at delivery services of tax on or a fee on delivery service as a way to fund transit. Are you in favor of that kind of approach, or are there others that you would think about?
First one to answer this question will be Adam Braun.
Thanks, Dan and Matt. Great question. So I'll say at the outset that I fully support a fully funded transit system. And as you point out, I mean, we have a transit system that was built for 1975 and not 2025, let alone 2045. And so at the outset, we need to approach this by saying we're going to build a more modern transit system that reflects the realities of how people get from one place to another. And we need it to be safe, reliable, and affordable. I take the 136 bus nearly every day. And at about 7:30 in the morning, I open up the Venture app and I try to time my morning routine to coincide with the bus arrival. And all too often, I walk to the bus stop and I wait. And I wait a little bit longer. And on the best days, it's an inconvenience. And on the worst days, it's utterly disruptive. So I think before we talk about how we're going to fund the system, we need to see a real plan that modernizes the system. Under the current regime at the CTA, I'm not inspired to ask you to pay more for what we presently have. So before raising taxes, imposing new fees, and certainly before raising fares, I want to see that there is a real specific plan for safe, affordable, and convenient public transportation. Once that happens, we need to have a real conversation about how to fund it. I fully support dedicated, consistent funding revenue sources to ensure that we have a world-class transportation system.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Next answer will be coming from Demi Palecek.
Thanks, Dan. I do believe that we should have a fully funded transit system. It's the heartbeat of our city. We love it. We love it on pictures, and if we love it so much on pictures and tote bags, then we have to prove it and make sure that we are safe on the red line in every stop, right? And I want to also talk about not only funding transit, but we're also leaving out the minority communities. Veterans use the transit system every day to get to appointments. They sometimes take 5 or 6 trains to get there, right? Or CTA stops. So they were actually just recently written out, as well as seniors and disabled. So we need to make sure that that is also written back in. And along with that, I think that we should also be funding PACE and well as Metra. These communities rely on this, and to take that away from them now to get to critical doctor's appointments is really upsetting.
Thank you very much for that answer. Next up is Sunjay Kumar.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for this question. When it comes to public transit, the current bill that passed Senate had a lot of really great governance reforms, things to improve integration between CTA, Metra, and PACE, making sure that all the systems are working together. So I'm really excited for that to be the thing. But in order to fund that, we are going to need to find other ways to fill in the revenue. So this is the big thing I want to take a step back. When it comes to transit, when it comes to all of our other priorities that we want to make sure we're funding, right now, Illinois is one of the most unequal states in terms of how taxes are gathered. We need to have progressive revenue sources that are alternatives to raising property taxes in order to pay for these services. The Illinois Revenue Alliance has a good list of what these look like, but they include things like closing corporate tax loopholes, making sure that we are taxing, doing a digital ad tax on big tech, increasing the top rate of excise taxes to replace the Trump tax cuts. Those revenue solutions will allow us to fund a transit system that is not just at parity with what it is now, but one that is better, that goes into the future and will allow us to have a fully safe, reliable, and accessible transit system.
Thank you very much. Moving right along, next up will be James O'Brien.
Thanks, Dan. So this is a critical issue, right? We're messing with people's livelihoods by not funding it, and that's untenable. I take the Braun line to work, and it's just unacceptable that Springfield let it get to this point, particularly for our district that has 8 CTA stations and a Metro stop. So we need this to get passed immediately. I would call for a special session to do just that. And not only do we want maintenance funding, but we want funding that allows the system to expand, right? So that we can have a system that people feel safe on, that doesn't have ghost buses that don't show up, that has trains that are running regularly, and that expands with bus rapid transit as well. So how do we do that? I think consolidating the CTA, PACE, and Metra is an excellent reform, right? It helps be more efficient and save costs as well as improve planning. And I do support digital ad tax to help pay for it, while regular folks are tapped out. Big tech is one of the last remaining entities that can pay just a little bit more. Don't want to drive anyone out of Illinois, but it'd be very helpful for helping support our transit system. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And rounding out the last answer to this question will be Ridge Knapp.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks, Matt, for the question. So the big thing about this that I think is really, really important that we all remember is that there's a massive political fight happening right now to make sure the CTA is fully funded. But for folks who aren't in this call, who aren't involved in politics, we are fighting so that they notice no change. We're not, all this political capital is being spent, but we're not actually trying to make the system better for people. And so when I'm out at the doors, I'm talking to people about the need to make bus stops more accessible, making sure more bus stops have seating, more bus stops have shade, to let more people into the system. Because if it's hot out like it has been, if it's raining, if it's snowing, people don't take the bus. That increases emissions. It takes fares out of the CTA. And I think that's a really important way we can make the system better while drawing from other funding sources. New York got shade installed on so many of their bus stops for free for advertising revenue. Seating and that could potentially come out of the road fund. I agree with everyone else saying that we should have a special session for this. And I think the current funding cliff should be addressed with some of those progressive revenue options, including also I'd be interested in looking at changing vehicle registration to be weight-based as opposed to a flat fee as it currently is. I think that's another way we can, feed in. I got a lot of thoughts on this, but I'll save it there. And I look forward to more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our third question and our beloved Ivan Handler.
Thanks, Dan, very much, and thank you everyone for showing up. An exciting evening. My question is about affordable housing, and there's two parts to it. There's the traditional issues of affordable housing, expanding affordable housing, making it available because we have a lot of homeless people in the city. And I think that's very important, and I want to hear how you would approach that. But there's a second thing now because we're dealing with Trump. And let me give you an example. I live in a condo with 5 other families. I own mine. I'm retired. I'm lucky. The rest of these people I don't think do. So what happens to people like me who are normally considered to be fairly well off and stable middle-class families when people get wiped off by Trump? That's another issue of affordable housing. And how do you approach that particular issue? That's what I want to know. Thanks.
First up on this one will be Demi Palecek.
Yes, thank you, Ivan. Thanks, Dan. Ivan, that was an amazing question because affordable housing is very close to my heart. And that word gets thrown around so much, affordable housing, and then you go to the affordable housing and it's $1,800. That's not affordable. And then there's one unit in a high rise. Like that's not affordable for anyone, right? And I know a lot of people want rent control, and we do have a bill in the House right now that we're working on. And if we just change and modernize the verbiage in there, and instead of saying rent control and do rent stability, it could get passed. I'm very excited for it. I work with Cornerstone quite often. They are in Uptown. They are transitional housing, and they have a European style of way of getting people back in the workforce. And we've seen record numbers. It's 4 out of 5 people who go through them get back into the working class and are sustaining life and happy, right? So like on Mondays, we'll do resumes. On Wednesdays, we find all their documents because you need those. So I would also like to expand on transitional housing as well, because that is the foundation and stability that people need to get on the right path.
Thank you for that answer, Demi. Next answer will be coming from Sunjay Kumar.
Yeah, thank you for this question, Ivan. So first thing with affordable housing, or I guess starting with emergency housing or transitional housing for people experiencing homelessness, making sure that we have enough room and shelter beds. Right now, the regulatory system is such that it is far too easy for people to block emergency housing that's being built in their neighborhoods. My first priority is making sure that we are making it easier to build transitional housing and affordable housing by deregulating that process, speeding up that process. We have made some good progress on the city level around kind of the next level up of affordable housing that is subsidized by the state, making that easier to build, as well as making it easier to build market rate housing by getting rid of parking minimums. But we also need to look at the regulatory framework that prevents people from being able to build missing middle housing, which is what has historically been the thing that has allowed Chicago to have the sort of density that allows our city to be great. For me, the important thing here is making sure that we are organizing the community around these issues and making sure that we are pushing for these changes. I have a lot of experience working with local community organizations, fighting for Cornerstone Shelter, for example, fighting for affordable housing to be built locally. And I want to make sure that we're continuing to bring the community into pushing for that.
Thank you very much. Next candidate we'll hear from on this is James O'Brien.
Thanks for the question, Ivan. So for so long, Chicago was a relatively affordable city, right? Like that was one of our superpowers, and that is slipping away. This is a huge issue. And, I checked Zillow the other day, and in a district of around 110,000 people, there were 12 units, only 12 that had 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So we are at crisis levels right now, right? So what do we do about it? Simply put, we need to build more homes, and we need to do it while protecting renters and people that have been living in their areas. So we're not displacing them, right? So how do we do that? That means we streamline regulation to reduce costs and expedite building. It means building more apartments around transit. It means getting rid of parking minimums and allowing accessory dwelling units. And for rental protections, it means renter assistance, stronger anti-discrimination policies, and making sure that we are going after predatory landlords. Because with where we're at, we deserve nothing less than all of the above approach. And I look forward to bringing that.
Thank you, James. Next candidate up is Ridge Knapp.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Ivan, for the question. I really appreciate that you acknowledge the interconnection between questions of housing and questions of homelessness. I've already spoken a little bit on that. And I agree that with what everyone has said, affordability is the key issue here when it comes to rent, making sure that rent can be stabilized, and that's not a ban at the statewide level, but also making sure that we address this when it comes to supply and demand in building more housing, both in Chicago and across the state, to bring down average rents everywhere. I think it's also really important that we protect the SROs that remain out in Uptown in the eastern part of the district, because those for so often have been converted into market rate units. And not only does that take away that housing of potentially last resort, just slightly above, working with the shelters for a lot of people, those SROs get converted into market rate housing, which lifts the average rent for the entire community and makes it even less affordable for the people who want to live there. And they face the displacement that so many of the other folks have already mentioned. So yeah, I think it's a really, really important issue, and I would absolutely fight in Springfield to protect the SROs that we have left and, keep a roof over as many people's heads as possible.
Thank you very much for that answer. And wrapping up this question will be Mr. Adam Braun.
So I would start with what should be a relatively uncontroversial premise, which is that housing is a human right. In the year 2025, there is no reason why anyone should not have access to affordable housing. And we're in the midst of a national housing crisis. And whether you rent or whether you own, the cost of housing is just too expensive. And so in Springfield, I'll lead the fight for affordable housing for both renters and owners. Illinois, like almost every other state, is just not building enough affordable housing. It's really the key contributor, in my view, to the housing affordability crisis that we're confronting. So we need to find ways to drastically increase the stock of affordable housing, and we need to do it quickly. So first, I would support establishing a Build Illinois Homes tax credit that incents developers to build affordable housing. There's a proposal right now that is supported by labor, by housing advocates, and by the city, pending in the legislature, and it would incent developers to do this by requiring that the units be occupied by low-income renters before the developer could obtain the tax incentive. It's a really good start to increasing our housing stock. Second, we need to reform our property tax system. The tax system is a remnant of the 1950s, both in the way that the tax is assessed and the extent to which we rely on it. We need meaningful property tax reform that expands the tax base and reduces costs for homeowners. These are the type
on this one, Adam. I'm sorry. All right. Moving right along to our fourth question of the evening. This one is coming from Jeff Jenkins.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. I hear from community members quite a bit, and there are two overriding concerns that really dominate the conversation every time. One, they're terrified at the actions of the Republican Party, and two, they are deeply disappointed and quite frankly angry at the inaction from Democrats. So my question to you is, how will you encourage your constituents, inspire your constituents, and really give courage to your constituents to get involved to help protect our city, our state, and our democracy? And two, how will you engage and work with the 47th Ward Dems to do the same?
Sunjay Kumar, you're first up on this one.
Yeah, thank you for this question, Jeff. I think this is a really one that's really close to my heart. As a community organizer, my background has been in getting members of the community activated to fight back and fight for what we need. Most recently, a lot of that energy has been going into making sure that our neighbors know their rights, making sure that we are preparing for when ICE comes into our neighborhoods. I've been involved in the rapid response work of both training people and connecting people with that information, making sure that we have good, solid information about what's actually happening, that we're vetting that, and that we're helping people assess their risk and get to safety. For me, the important thing is just making sure that every member of our community feels like they are able to have a say in the government that shapes their lives. And that means reaching out to people, making sure that we are building those community organizations, that we are ready to respond whenever the Trump administration does the next terrible thing, and that we're ready to kind of come together and fight back there.
Thank you for that answer. Next up is James O'Brien.
Thanks for the question, Jeff. And, I've been encountering similar conversations when I've been at the doors. People are terrified of what's going on with the National Guard and ICE being used against people. And it's not okay. That's not what our government should be about. So how do we mobilize, right? Because as depressing as that can be, I do find hope when I'm talking to people one-on-one. And I think as your state representative, you've got to be everywhere all at once, hosting town halls to let people know what the rights are, how we're going to make sure that the state government is standing up and making it as difficult as possible at every turn for the federal government to be infringing on our citizens. And I take that really seriously because we are one of the last protections at the state level that we have against this, wannabe dictator that we have in Washington, right? So getting out there, working with local ward organizations, exactly like the 47th Ward, mobilizing people that are already actively engaged so that we're getting people out in the streets, doing so peacefully, and passing as much legislation as we can to make sure that it is as difficult for them to operate in Illinois as possible.
Thank you, James. Next up is Rich Knapp.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, I also see this at the doors. People are pissed off right now at largely even the inaction of the Democratic Party. And I think that's because for so long, we as Democrats have led on our values and talked about our values, but never actually talked about how we're going to implement those values. And if we talk about these big fights, whether that's healthcare as a human right, housing as a human right, those are going to take a lot of time and effort I'm willing to put in. But on the way there, we need to chip away at it. We need to make sure that there are enough ambulances in the city of Chicago when it means making healthcare more accessible for people and making it more affordable as well. I think in fighting against Washington, there's some great ways Springfield's doing that now to unmask ICE agents potentially. but really just standing up and getting involved both politically, but also in community organizations, like whether that's Ravenwood's Community Service, if it's Cornerstone, or if it's getting out and actually helping the people who are going to be most affected by cuts coming out of Washington, who are going to be targeted explicitly by the fascists coming out of Washington, coming to rip us away from our communities. We have to fight, as the word has been said time and time again, but we actually have to do it. And that's the most important thing. As for the 47th Ward Dems, I want to acknowledge it specifically, getting out, organizing with you guys, talking with you guys as much. I'm in the 47th Ward right now. I actually owe you a petition sheet from the petition day. And I'm fired up and I'm ready to go, but I'll let the next person talk.
All right, thank you, Ridge. Next up on this question will be Adam Braun.
Yeah. So, I mean, we should all be clear on exactly what we're seeing right now. Donald Trump is using every pillar of government as a direct assault on our democracy. And this is not the first time he's tried to do this, right? You'll recall even leading up to the 2020 election, they tried to add a citizenship question to the census as a very transparent way of trying to manipulate the electoral process. He directed the United States Postal Service to slow down the mail so that mail-in ballots couldn't be processed on a sufficient timeline. It was my office, it was Democratic attorneys general that stood up to stop them. And that's what we need to continue doing. We need to build Illinois as a blue haven for people who want to come to a place where civil rights are protected, where access to reproductive health care is guaranteed, where providers from other states will not be threatened by red state attorneys general, governors, and state legislatures for providing services to people in our state. We need to keep our environments clean. The only way we can do that is if we collectively mobilize and ensure that our state legislature is passing laws that guarantee Illinois remains a blue haven for the rest of the country.
Thank you, Adam. And wrapping up this question will be Demi Palecek.
Thank you, Dan. I believe in meeting people where they're at. If that's at schools, if that's at church, block club, the doors, on social media. When people feel heard, that's when they're more willing to fight. I started Sandwich for Solidarity. We do it monthly. We fundraise. I put it on social media, on TikTok. I have over 60 volunteers now. We've had to expand it to where now I can delegate things out. I also have a food kitchen corner on Wilson and Sheridan. And now I have volunteers who check it every day and clean it. People want to do things. People are out there. You just have to know what they want, right? We have postcards events at the 46th Ward. It grows every week. Just meet people where they're at and know what they want. Not everyone's going to want to go talk to the PTA moms, and the PTA moms want to talk to their own friends. That's perfect, right? And just keep copying and pasting that all over the block clubs, social media, whatever the case may be.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to our final question, which is coming from not only one of our most veteran precinct captains, but also our current president of the 47th Ward Democrats, Mr. Eric Norton.
Thanks, Dan. How is everybody? All right, we've all heard how you're all going to be the same and do things, but what makes each one of you different than your opponents? And what are you going to do differently?
All right, and taking this question first will be James O'Brien.
Thanks, Eric. So I think there's actually a lot that makes me different from my opponents. I think I've got a really unique blend in this race of the advocacy and passion that you need to, bring to an issue, but I've also got the policy experience to actually get it done. And so, for Sunjay, Demi, and Ridge, I'll think that your heart's in the right place, but at the end of the day, we've just had different career paths. And I think that mine has given me very significant experience negotiating bills, working on budgets, and building coalitions from within government. That is really hard to do if you haven't done it before, because that takes years to build up that skill set. And for Adam, while you've got good government experience, you've also spent nearly a decade as a corporate lobbyist, right? Lobbying for big banks, casinos, and agencies that are jacking up ticket prices. So I actually turned down lobbying offers that would have helped pay for law school. I take the commitment to public service very seriously, and I think that I can bring that commitment and energy but with the experience that you need to get things done together. And that's what I look forward to doing as state representative.
All right, thank you, James. Next up on this one is Ridge Knapp.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Eric, for the question. It's what everyone's been asking. James, thank you for that as well. I think what sets me apart is I've been an organizer, but I've also do have some of that experience in government, being a data analyst, seeing what policies look best and are most effective at the state's attorney's office, what diversion programs work the best, what felony enhancements are being given to our undocumented neighbors that would have been misdemeanors if they had citizenship, and how can we address that in Springfield in the criminal code. I also think the donkey in the room, if you will, is I am the youngest person running. I'm 27. I'm Gen Z. I would be the youngest elected state representative in Chicago right now. And I think people in my generation are looking for people like us in the fight. People who our only experience ever with politics has been in the Trump era, where Democrats have a lot of talk, but don't get very much done. And Republicans are straight evil and bust through don't let anyone stop them to implement policies that'll make it worse for everyone in Chicago, Illinois, and across the country. And I want to be someone who will get things done to push forward a positive future for our city, our state, and our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up to answer is Adam Braun.
So let's be clear. I'm the only candidate in this race with a real record of accomplishment in state government. I worked every day with Attorney General Raul to stand up to the Trump administration, protect abortion, protect civil rights, and keep our streets safe. I've passed legislation in Springfield, both in my capacity in the Attorney General's office and as a parent. So I'll be ready to hit the ground running on day one. I have the experience necessary to be the leader that the 13th district needs. I'm also the only CPS parent in the race. I know firsthand the effects of the chaos at CPS. I know the feeling of navigating the IEP process. For those of you who have had the experience of sitting at your kitchen table, trying to make heads and tails of some complicated letter from the central office, trust me, I've been there too. We need CPS parents in Springfield who understand what families in our district are going through and who can advocate to make sure that CPS is fully funded, that there's art and music in our classrooms, and that our children get the education they deserve.
Thank you very much. Next up is Demi Palecek.
Thanks, Dan. What makes me different than my opponents is I bring lived experiences and a track record of standing up for people when it wasn't easy. I mean, yes, I enlisted in the military, but to afford college, and I've spent my entire career fighting for housing, healthcare, women, and justice for people who always feel left out of the process. I know what it feels like when the system doesn't work for you, and that's why I'm running, not for myself, but for my district. I'm already out in the community. I'm already taking care of the district. I'm feeding them. I'm clothing them. I'm housing them. I mean, that's what our district needs. They need to be helped and they need a hand. There's no reason to pull up your bootstraps when someone doesn't have boots on.
Thank you very much. And last one on this question will be Sunjay Kumar.
Yeah, so I have spent my entire adult life building spaces where people can share with themselves, learn about the experiences of people both similar and different than them, and find common ground to work towards a common goal. I have organized as an LGBTQ and Asian American organizer for over a decade, building spaces, bringing people together, and also accomplishing things at the state level, including ending cash bail in Illinois, including fighting for language justice and getting legislation passed to protect our immigrant neighbors. This community is my home. I am so proud to be running to represent it. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's going to wrap up our question portion of the night and going to bring us to our final closing statements from each candidate. Just a reminder that each candidate has 1 minute to give a meaningful but short and sweet closing statement. And the first candidate up for that will be Ridge Knapp.
Oh, I thought we were going to restart the reverse order. Fine. Again, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. We've talked about a lot of really important issues. We've not had that much time to talk about some other ones I really care about, like the environment. Again, like protecting the queer community, improving access to healthcare. And as I said before, I've had a great time running this race. I'm the youngest person running, and I would be the youngest person elected to represent Chicago right now. And I know that's challenging, but I've been a coach, I've been an athlete, I've been an organizer, and I've never let a challenge slow me down. My campaign's already raised $25,000 from more than 250 donors, building a real people-powered campaign, knocking hundreds of doors, collecting hundreds of signatures with so many volunteers who have already bugged to come out. But we're only getting started. And so if you liked a bit of what I said today or you want to hear more, please feel free to reach out. Ridge@ridgefor13.com is my direct email. I'll also answer any social media DM, or if you want my number, feel free to ask Paul or Dan or any of the organizers here, and please do share that with folks. So thank you and have a good night.
Thank you very much, Ridge, and thank you for your time. Next closing statement is from Adam Braun.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks to everyone with the 47th Ward Democrats for convening tonight's forum. With everything going on in the world, it's a tribute to everyone on this Zoom that you took an hour out of your Tuesday evening to learn more about what each of us stand for and what we want to do in the General Assembly. These are serious times, and we need leadership in Springfield with a proven record of standing up to Donald Trump. In my time in the Attorney General's office, that's what I did. We protected civil rights and access to abortion. We helped make healthcare affordable and accessible. We cleaned up the environment and fought climate change. We helped law enforcement take illegally trafficked guns off our streets. But I think we all know that there's more to do. And that's why I'm asking for your vote to be your next state representative. I hope you'll visit my website, braunforil.com, to learn more about my campaign and sign up to volunteer. It's been a pleasure talking to everyone tonight, and I look forward to continuing the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Next closing statement is coming from Demi Palecek.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks to everyone who came, and of course, the 47th Ward. If you're ready for change and you want a representative who's not just another politician or lobbyist, but someone who's actually lived it, who's been on the front lines for working families, veterans, women, the LGBTQ community, seniors, and our immigrant communities, and I am creative in writing bills, so it's actually not performative. It actually makes a difference in our society and to families. Then I'm going to ask you to join me. I'm the only woman in the race. I'm the only one who has spent their life standing up and showing up for people and who felt that they've been left behind. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love for you to get involved. Please make sure you go and visit my website, Demi for Illinois. And I'd love if you want to come to a sandwich making event or see any of the other events that we have all week long. Have a good rest of your night, and I'll see everyone soon.
Thank you, Demi. Next closing statement is coming from Sunjay Kumar.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you to all of the precinct captains for your questions and to the entire community for coming out tonight. As a community organizer, I have spent my life building spaces for people to advocate for themselves and come to understand each other, whether that's political education with Invisible to Invincible, which is a queer and trans Asian Pacific Islander organization, or canvassing neighbors across our district and city around public safety for all to build power to end cash bail in Illinois, or building an anti-racism team on my church to make sure that on a very community-based level that we are addressing racism wherever it shows up. This has been my history and my experience, and it is why I'm running for office. I believe every single person, no matter your age, gender, race, or legal status, deserves to have a voice in the systems that govern our lives. Thank you all for coming, and I'm excited to hear more from y'all. Reach out to me on social media or on my website. I have an email up there. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And wrapping up our closing statements will be James O'Brien.
So thanks again to the Fighting 47th and everyone for coming out tonight. These conversations are so important, so I appreciate your time. This is a really scary point in time, right? And like we talked about earlier, we've been feeling the hopelessness at the doors. But last I checked, we still live in a democracy, and it doesn't have to be that way. So if we're going to change things around, we need to get people excited about the Democratic Party. And that means getting new energy in there, but combining that energy with the track record of actually delivering. And despite what we've heard, I would call school funding reform a very real accomplishment at the state level. I know the parents of CPS would agree. And I want to bring that sort of energy to make sure that we continue to deliver results that people see in their day-to-day lives. I want to fight on your behalf. I want to make sure that the state of Illinois remains a sanctuary where everyone can live their best lives and be true to themselves. So please join our campaign. I would love to talk with you. Visit jamesforillinois.com and see what I'm about, because I cannot wait to be your next state representative.
Well, thank you very much, James, and thank you to all the candidates. I think that was a very, very productive and informative forum. I want to thank everybody that is listening and everybody for being respectful. And I hope that you got what you were looking for out of this. And I'm sure that we can put you guys in touch with any, websites or any information if anybody has any questions. Mr. Rosenfeld, how are you feeling? Is Mr. Rosenfeld in the house? Okay. Well, I think we can pretty much close this out for now, and we will be seeing everybody soon and talking to you more about this race. I think it's an important one. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.